Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Batris and I'm Mentorship Coordinator for Geomer Charitable Society. This is just a presentation on our Helping Hampers project and what we do in the city to build networks of students that help families in need within their communities. So before I explain the project itself, I do want to give you a little bit of context in terms of what Geomer is. Geomer is a registered charitable society. We were founded in 2010, and our objective is to strive to eliminate poverty by mentoring young people and empowering them to connect with their communities. Now, the reason we're so focused on working with young people is because now more than ever, young people are volunteering for nonprofits and raising money on behalf of nonprofits. And because of that, Geomer really recognizes that the young generation are the leaders of today. So what we try to do is create community initiatives that allow young leaders to become involved and develop project management skills using projects that are focused on alleviating poverty. So the one I'm going to talk about in this presentation is Helping Hampers, but I do want to tell you about two other projects we have that also engage young people. Our first one is our Suit Up campaign. It's our own version of a clothing drive where we bring the children of low-income families to Old Navy. This year it was Southampton Common, and we give them a $100 gift certificate so they have a chance to buy new clothing. And also, it is a project that also focuses on financial literacy because for a lot of these children, they've never been given $100 to learn how to spend it and learn how to budget their money accordingly. So it actually is a 2-hour VIP shopping experience at Old Navy. The Sprint and Splash is a fundraiser for Helping Hampers and Suit Up. It's very logistics intensive and it's an opportunity for for students in high school and in university to enhance those skills. Like I said, Helping Hampers is the project I'm going to talk about today. And basically what that is Helping Hampers is this huge, large-scale, collaborative project that involves adopting families in different parts of the cities by collecting organizations, which include schools, businesses, community groups, and churches. Now, the number one question that I'm always asked, which is very valid, is how is this different from other hamper projects? And it's different in two ways, but the first one I'm going to focus on is size and the types of people that we help. So, according to the 2014 Hunger Count report, almost 50,000 people were helped by a food bank in March of 2014. And it's numbers like these that put a tremendous amount of strain on organizations such as the food bank because they have to help so many people. Now, where our project comes in is we actually exist to complement organizations such as the food bank in that we help a smaller number of families with a more substantial amount of goods. So while the food bank can only provide a family a few days or even a few weeks worth of goods, we aim to provide families 3 to 4 months of assistance. And we do this in the hopes of bettering this family's situation, especially if they're victims of situational poverty, to the point where they may not have to go and rely on organizations such as the food bank and fall into a cycle of poverty. So a lot of the questions we get to in terms of how our project differs is the types of families we help. And I already touched on it slightly. We focus on families that are suffering from situational poverty, so families that have become victims of circumstance which may be due to a death in the family, sudden loss of a job, or maybe they've just arrived to Canada. So to explain that to students and our stakeholders, we created this video, which I'm going to show you right now.
When you're out, so you're looking. Don't you like when you feel like not to hear kids? Only hold till your coffee warm. Don't hurry when you speak. Once a time, put a time in your ear on beat. And your crush could hear.
So the reason we developed this video was really to explain to students and staff and anyone involved with our project how people can become victims of poverty and how it can happen to anyone. And we actually did use stories of families that we've helped in the past in that video. So now I'm just going to go over a brief overview of how the project works and how we build networks of schools, businesses, community groups, and churches to adopt families in need. So the first kind of step of our project is the planning stage where we're building the network. That involves first recruiting, collecting organizations. And essentially what we do here is we divide the city into sections and we assign program managers. Now, just for the sake of this example, I'm going to use a school that's in the Millwoods/East area of the city. So J. Percy Page is an example of a collecting high school that always does approximately 5 hampers. And every year we approach them when we ask them where they want their family demographics from. Usually schools will pick feeder schools within their catchment area, because this really helps instill a sense of responsibility in the students themselves when they're collecting items for these families, because a lot of them have attended these schools themselves. What we do next is then we find the demographics of those families by reaching out to principals and teachers at those schools. Now, you'll see in the yellow box, that is our idea of an ideal demographic, if we're able to get the ages, the clothing sizes, the shoe sizes, and any special requests. But the reality is a lot of these families are struggling through hard times, they're stressed out, and they're often very hard to get a hold of, which is why often our demographics end up looking a little bit more like this. Although this might seem very minimal, what we always try to do is find details that are specific to that demographic so that we can modify the donation list based on that. So for example, if we know that the family is Muslim, we're going to make sure that we don't include any canned pork products in the hampers because that's not going to be useful to them. One year, a mother really wanted us to know that her boys were autistic, which was useful in terms of accommodating what types of gifts the students were going to get those boys. Another good example is if a family is expecting a baby. A lot of these supplies are very expensive and they don't need to be used later on, so being able to have those supplemented in the hamper is very useful. Another example is when you get a demographic like this. This demographic clearly shows that it's more than one family under one roof, and in cases like these, we're going to supplement the hamper a little bit more. So after we have the demographic, we actually generate these donation lists, And these donation lists are more than just food. They involve food, gifts, toiletries, hygiene products, and most importantly, gifts, which is an aspect of our hamper that's a little bit different. And the reason we include that is to add more of a little bit of a personal touch. Stage 2 is when we actually work with the schools, the students in the schools, or the staff in the collecting organizations themselves. So this is where students get really involved in planning rigorous publicity campaigns. They often involve creative announcements, letters to reach in each classrooms, locker notes, and creative posters. What we really encourage people to do is actually post the demographic of their families, once again, to remind students and staff that it is a real family, a mom, a dad, a grandma, grandpa that they're helping that's depending on them. The next stage is actually collection. So one of our services is we provide boxes and the donation list, which are specific to those demographics, to our schools. They distribute that within among collecting classrooms, and basically we ask them to have a collection campaign of at least 2 weeks. This is an example of what that kind of looks like. Students will do inventory during the weeks or at the end of the week. And the idea is to make it a very huge event where students are constantly being reminded to bring their items. At the end is final hamper preparation, where there's usually a group of students, sometimes an actual leadership class, that's in charge of organizing and making sure that everything is accounted for. We try our best to help supplement hampers with items that we consider must-haves so that we can ensure all the families get a minimum amount of items. Usually we don't have to do this because schools are so great at bringing in every single item for their families, which is awesome. Gift wrapping is also part of this project, just because, as I mentioned before, it does add that personal touch to the hamper. A lot of these families are not expecting, first of all, for these hampers to be as large as they are, but they're also not expecting to get gifts. And when they receive a gift with a card written inside from a whole school, basically, they're incredibly touched because this whole time they've been thinking that they've been going through this whole thing by themselves, and they had no idea that a whole community was actually thinking of them. The next stage is actual hamper delivery. So another service that we provide is we coordinate all the deliveries for the whole city. We coordinate this with their feeder schools or their partnered schools, and it usually does involve a team of students and staff from those schools so they can be part of the process. Delivery will approximately take 1 day for one school. However, this year it is stretched over 10 days from December 7th to December 17th. So if you do want to help us out, that is a great time to reach out to us. We're always looking for volunteers to help us move boxes. This is a slide just demonstrating what all of my project managers do for these schools. It's actually not a very extensive list. They do more than this. But essentially, my project managers are there to make helping families in these communities as simple as possible for people. So by creating those partnerships between collecting organizations and feeder schools, finding those demographics, making those donation lists which are specific to those demographics, even to the simple things like providing boxes, because a lot of high school students don't drive and can't get the amount of boxes that they would need to make these hampers. We do all the coordination of delivery dates, and in the new year we do collect feedback from those families so that we can show communities the difference that they're making in a family's life. So that basically brings us to the end of our presentation. Usually we ask students if they have any questions, of course, but if you have any questions, you can definitely just leave them in the comments below. This is definitely a project that we try to engage everyone in. So if you are interested in knowing which is the closest collecting organization to your home, to your work, so that you can donate, definitely leave us a message and we can let you know. We have a whole interactive map showing where all these families in need are in the city, and we can definitely bring you on board in terms of helping. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.